Hey, Redemption Church, Pastor Vince here, and this is Vinny G Live for Thursday. Now, normally, Vinny G Live is a combination of Vince Garvey and Anthony G. This is not Anthony G. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kailey. I work for the church. I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm not Anthony. I'm not as funny as him, so we'll see how this goes.
You're funny, though.
I have my moments.
You work for the church. Most of us, everyone that's probably watching is going to know what you do, but why don't you share for, obviously, the hundreds of people that are tuning in.
Hundreds of people, yes. So I do community and global outreach, so really fun to get to hang out with the neighbors and partners in the city and in the world. And then I also work for Arizona 127, so it's a fun job combining the two of those.
And Arizona 127 is?
Is a faith movement engaging the church in caring for child welfare. So we work with foster, kinship, adoptive families, and lots of other things in that.
Yeah, super awesome. Thank you for doing this.
Yes.
Kaylee and I have been talking about doing this for about a couple weeks. However, apparently I forgot to tell her it was going to happen this day, like today. So it was on the radar, but I had not scheduled this time. And so big thanks to Kaylee. I showed up at 2:51 and told her, hey, we're on in 9 minutes. And she was gracious and available and is willing to sit down and have this conversation with us. So the reason why I wouldn't have Kaylee on was obviously in the COVID season and the craziness that is our world right now. There was this, right, we're hearing of church closing down, and then we start thinking, man, the needs are going to rise. So could you just talk about like some of the initial impetus towards the community response team, which you can even describe it if you want, and just kind of what were some of your initial thoughts as like this stuff was rolling out and like, hey, we need to be present, and what did that look like?
Yeah. I think it's just a desire to care. I think if you've been around us a while, you've heard us talk about what it means to love our neighbors, and that's unique in this season with physical distancing. So obviously there's things that we have to figure out and safety protocols and caring for our volunteers and our congregation, but also understanding that this is moving into a new season and a new reality for a lot of people in our community, especially those that have had little protective factors going into this, and that's really affected so many families and their ability to have stable housing and food insecurity and all of these things. So yeah, just a little bit of what we've been up to. We'll jump into that, but the desire has just been to say, what does it mean to love our neighbor, and how can we do that well in this season?
Yeah, let's talk if we could start almost on the what are some of the things. I'll say this, I'll brag on you and I'll brag on our church and the response that I've seen from our people, which honestly has been phenomenal. I would say some of that is attached to like some of the work that you had done and Andy had done, and we had tried to cultivate kind of in Redemption as saying like, this is who we are, this is important to us. So could you just kind of speak to like what do you think are some of the reasons why we were able to hit the ground running in a way that's honoring to so many folks that have been really sacrificing a lot?
Yeah, I think it's just relationships. Lots of coffee and Thai food dates at Pado Thai, and
Can we get a shout out?
Yes, we're gonna get sponsored. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So when all this comes up or like releases us into a new season, then we can all have Thai food again together. But yeah, I think that it was literally just relationships. So really, even before like the national emergency and like Arizona and Governor Ducey's proclamation, and then Mayor Evans and her proclamation for the city, we were getting phone calls just saying, hey, what do you guys need? Because we already know that you guys are loving our neighbors in lots of different ways, and how can I be a part of what you're doing? So that's just been like really cool, and just blown away by the number of people that have reached out to us in our church, like in our friends and in our city. Some people who would never walk into a church building are saying, like, why are you doing what you're doing, and why are you in this space? And so it's just really cool to say Jesus loves you no matter what what building you walk into on a Sunday, or if you don't go at all, and we just get to be in this together. And then the other piece is because we already had relationships with several partner agencies and with families in Sunnyside, as things were becoming more and more challenging, we just got to say, like, because we love you, we want to care for you. And as it becomes more challenging, more is being asked of us. So
yeah, it's awesome. And I want you to know, like, I asked that question to Kailey, right? It's truly, and hopefully you know that enough about us, like that wasn't like a, hey, we were crushing it, and so look at us continue to crush it. It's really, I meant it as an honor to Kailey, to Andy, to the people who've come before in that team, and then honestly to so many of you, and hopefully you're watching these from time to time, or at least you hear that, hey, we love you, we're so thankful that we get to like serve alongside you, so thank you, truly, like it's been awesome. So, okay, so we early on launched the Community Response Team, or the CRT as it's been called. We've talked about it a bit, right, from time to time, so what is it? Why did we launch it? What are some of the things that team is doing now?
Yeah, that's a lot of information, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. So Community Response Team, really, I texted Vince, was like, we should do this, really before, when all of this was first starting. So as an extension of our deacons and people who are already spiritually and emotionally caring for people in our church and our community, an extension of this to help with tangible support during this time. So we can talk about some of what that looks like, but really this is just people who have reached out to us or emailed us or said, hey, we know that something's going on and we want to be a part of it, and we want to be united in caring for our city together. So.
Yeah, and I think it's not just us, right? Like there's others. The
yeah.
team has expanded beyond just Redemption folk.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Would you share like a little bit about our collaboration with other churches?
Yeah.
For FMC?
Yeah, maybe you guys, like if you are part of Redemption, like you've heard us mention a couple times, but man, we've been really excited because there's kind of this, there's no official title to it, but it's kind of this Flagstaff church collaboration. Yeah.
Vince really likes alliteration, so lots of C's are floating around.
I know, the email I sent to all the pastors was the COVID Corona collaboration of Christian churches for Christ, something like that.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Ridiculous.
And,
you were really proud of yourself for that.
I know, somehow people signed up. So we have right now officially 11 churches that are kind of part of this collaboration, and then more that are kind of like, hey, they're doing stuff and involved, but kind of, like haven't said like, yes, we're going to use the same platform or whatever. But gosh, it's been really encouraging, not just because we're able to meet a wider scope of needs, the church gets to be unified in that, but then also a lot of the conversation has shifted to like, hey, like, Lord willing, COVID will go away, and so like, will there be an opportunity for the church to continue to thrive as God's people, as the church here in the city? And that's saying not because we checked differences at the door. It's like when we embrace the differences that we have amongst the other. We often talk about the differences that exist amongst one another, but in the midst of that, we serve one God. There's one baptism, one Spirit. So, so anyway, so that's been hyper encouraging, right? So, okay, so there is a ton of stuff we could get into. I'm going to try and break it down bit by bit in buckets. And so let's start with kind of I don't want to say it's the biggest bucket, but it seems like a ton of resource and time and energy and partnership are going into this bucket right now, and that is the work that's happening up on the Native Nations, on the Hopi and Navajo reservations to be specific. Can you just, and don't feel like you need to be short-winded, share what you think would be helpful for people to know and why we think it's important that we get involved?
Yeah, I think it's important because we're humans and we are called to care and be in relationship with each other. We've talked about this a lot over the last few years and really have chosen to come behind people and local leaders that we trust and have relationship with to honor their leadership and to support them. And so kind of when all of this was starting to happen, again, it was kind of like, okay, well, what do you need? Local partners in the city and friends and people in our church and students at Indian Bible College, at NAU that we have a relationship with. Like, what does this mean for you to care for your family? How can we strengthen you and empower you as a local Native leader to serve your communities? And obviously there's politics and there's historical trauma and there's deep wounds in the church on the Native nations, and we want to make sure that we're honoring and that we are supportive and that in no way are we being the saviors in any situation. We just want to help, and we want to do that in a respectful and honoring way. So kind of how that's looked right now is partnering with Tom and Delphina Johnson and really doing a comprehensive needs assessment. If you're a social worker, you'll like that term.
CNA.
What does it mean? Like, what is the most critical need right now? And that is food. So there's already food insecurity in places, and the deeper into the res and the more isolated villages, there were already concerns about that. And then going into this time where there's added barriers and there's curfews and restrictions and even more food insecurity. And then, honestly, so many families that work here in Flagstaff that support their families on the res have lost incomes, or their incomes might have changed and fluctuated during this time. And so their support and being able to support their families back there has looked different. So again, like asking the right questions, I think we talk a lot about, it's not just what we do, but it's how we do it.
Yeah, big time.
And so it's been a lot of conversations, and we were able to start with 2 senior centers on the Navajo reservation. And now we're expanding that to about 6 different locations, all through relationships with students and family members here in Redemption Flagstaff, and in kind of a relationship with us through Indian Bible College and Coquitlam Dorm. So really, really cool. And we're not the only ones doing stuff. Obviously, there's some really cool initiatives going on, but we're choosing to put our energy and our resources, both financially and time, into relationships and making sure that our families and their families are cared for well.
Yeah, it's honestly amazing work. Real quick, how does, if people are part of the CRT, they've been getting requests, they know it. If the people are watching that aren't part of the CRT, how could they help? What would be a kind of specific push to them right now in regards to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of a plug for the CR team. I think we're about 80 people right now. So kind of the rhythm of what that's looking like. We are getting a lot of requests coming in. I'm doing a lot of conversations and just kind of checking in with our partner agencies and our friends in the city. And then weekly we're sending out one email. Supposed to be on Monday, but usually it's like midnight or Tuesday morning. So that's kind of, if you want to opt into that and be a part of that, there's no pressure to meet every need on there. Obviously that's huge, but we do want to present you specific opportunities that we love and care about, and partners we want to strengthen during this time. So if you want to be on that team, then you've already kind of been receiving that, or you could be receiving that. We're also sharing on Facebook, so you'll see some stuff, kind of 2 different options. You can pick up any of those items that we're collecting that have been specifically requested and bring that to our church office. So kind of, maybe we can even post it in the chat of this, but water and flour, applesauce, soup with pull-top containers, stuff that is easily accessible, canned meats, Vienna sausage, chicken, spam. I've never bought so much spam in my whole life. That was a crazy opportunity.
Missing out.
Who knew I could buy 48 cans of spam in
It's
one trip.
legitimately like a concern of mine that like grieves my heart that we have a spam folder that's like bad stuff. It's like, that's messed up.
That's some Southern roots right there coming out.
It's something, man. Spam's good.
So you can purchase those items kind of when you're at the store doing your normal family shopping, but we also have put together kind of how to pack a kit. So this is a really sweet way for you to disciple your kids and have a conversation of what does it mean when our neighbors have less than us? What does it mean to really physically care for and enter into suffering with our friends? When we were taking some stuff out to the Native Nation last week, it was just so hard to hear friends sharing that they honestly didn't know how that they were going to feed their family. And so to be able to just say, hey, I can't solve everything, I can't feed everyone, but we can make a kit together. We can kind of feed a family together and seniors that are most vulnerable. So you have the option of kind of, hey, I'm just going to drop by these few items, or we're going to put together a whole box, and then we have that list, and we'll be posting that on Facebook and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So, a couple of the options. Oh, you know what? Pause. I know someone's trying to call me right now.
Some technical difficulties over here.
Oh, it's back. So we're trying to get funds for that, people to pack boxes, and so again, I love that kind of that big audacious, scary goal. So
of course you do. And I'm over here like, what?
I know.
But we're going to make it happen. Yeah, and I think we're just, this is one of those pieces of we're just honoring the relationships that we have, and we'll be doing this until someone tells us that that's not the current need. And so we do hope that like the relational value that we're building is honoring and coming along behind the local leaders to strengthen their villages and families, and we hope that that increases our relational engagement with them kind of past this crisis of food insecurity. So.
Yeah, it's massive. If you go to the Spontaneous Sabbath Toolkit, there's a couple resources on there we'd encourage you to pick up, and we can even get you some more. I think this season we've talked about with service, yes, focus on gospel prayer, but could it be a season of learning as well, with some of that free time to pick up books and resources that we could better educate ourselves and the dynamics of our Native neighbors and not just history, but just really present day, and what does it mean for the beauty of the kingdom of God to be present, right, in that community? What does it mean then for us as right, a Western white church, in Flagstaff to be able to navigate those lines well. So anyway, you can stop by the toolkit and find some information on that, or just let us know. So really thankful for that work. Let's talk about the second piece that I wanted to address. So we've started, so that's, that's away. It's, it's not local Flagstaff, and then we're going super local Flagstaff, very kind of into the individuals, and so we've started posting on the Flagstaff Buy Barter Sell, Flagstaff Yard Sale, just on Facebook, and said, hey, here's who we are. And then even most recently, the post was, hey, there's 10 plus churches that want to serve you, give us your needs. And so we've had people just kind of come in and start sending us stuff. So could you share about, just even if I was a bystander and thinking like, hey, are we vetting that well? Like, how are we choosing what goes where? And are we just throwing money? It's, all the questions that might come from, like, you're putting out a needs request to the whole city, So, like, could you just talk about what FBBS is doing and the fruit we're seeing from it, and kind of just give an idea of that?
Yeah, so really the heart was this, just to be present in the city, and so we do have relationships specifically in our church, and our office is located in Sunnyside, and so we have proximity and relationship to several of the agencies and families and schools here in this area, but really understanding that there are people in this that might not have any protective factors and any form of natural support. And I think that is where we want to exist, and we want to strengthen them and care for them so that it doesn't get into this really desperate place, right? We want to help families be strong, and that looks different in different contexts and in different ways, right? So we do that with our kids ministry in unique ways, and we're doing that through this piece. So I have a social work background, and so Vince makes fun of me all the time, but forms, I really like forms and color coding things. No, I do. He's like rolling his eyes, but so really the goal is that anyone who presents a need to us, I'm having a conversation with them to say, like tell me what's going on. We're asking for honesty in that, and honestly, it's a really sacred honor to be invited into people's stories, especially when it feels so hard and broken and insurmountable, the hurdles that are going on right now. So, like to protect and to like honor those families well, we're not going to share a bunch of details. If you have any like specific questions, then please let us know. But really, we're taking each situation and asking what they need, and then really directing them towards any resources that the city and the county are providing in terms of rental assistance, in terms of food assistance. Flagstaff Family Food Center is doing an incredible job offering that. FUSD is offering lunches for families. So we're really making sure that they have as much natural support to increase their resiliency as possible. And then when there are specific things that we can help with, we did have a situation with a single mama asked for some help moving, and so what does that look like for her to be high risk during this time and care for her baby well? Like, we can carry boxes, or we can move a piano, and some other situations have been just several single mamas, honestly, and losing income, and what does that look like? Some people have reached out requesting assistance with housing, and so connecting them with people in our church who might have Airbnbs that are closed right now. Like, really being creative to be the church when we're not in a building. So what does it look like for me to use whatever resources I have to honor and to strengthen someone else? And we have some incredible people that we're friends with that come to church on a Sunday, normally, obviously not right now, but or sit in their room on a Sunday and hang out with us. So what does it look like for us to be the body and really enter into care for people who are losing jobs, losing incomes, having children? Some people that have reached out are really medically fragile and they need support with grocery shopping. We've been working with the shelters to help strengthen some of their support as they increase and serve more and more people in our local community. So yeah, just some of those ways. So we're taking every situation specifically and finding the unique fit to serve that family.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really good stuff. Again, if you are looking to help out, there's a lot of just that individual stuff, but no, like our biggest drive in the midst of this, I think even this is a culture here at Redemption, is like how do we, like it's not like we'll wait till Vince and Kailey send you an email to do something, right? It's like, man, have you reached out to your neighbors? Do you know the people on your street? Like, your coworkers? Are we engaging with the relationships that God's already put in our lives? And asking that question is, hey, like, how are you truly doing? Can I pray for you? Is there anything I can help you with in this season? This crazy church of mine, they want to just come help you, that type of thing. So a big part of this is, like, obviously we're not going to hear about everything. A lot of you are already loving your neighbors well, and we love that. If we can come alongside you in that, that's amazing. But really operating off of, maybe you're familiar with this, but this kind of idea of a proximity principle of just saying, like, hey, when someone comes with a need, it says you want to kind of start with your closest sphere of influence, so if you're 22 and, college student, well, you need to go to your parents before you, come, but, talk to your parents, and obviously, and then you kind of just work your way and through the community, and then at some point, seeing the corporate world be able to come in and the church world come in, and so it's been really amazing to see how some of this has been met. So let's pivot then to kind of this third bucket, which is, it's not like we stopped doing everything we were already doing.
No.
It's just we kind of added on this monster of a thing that was trying to care for needs in the midst of COVID. But foster care and adoption is still a thing. Kids are still being displaced. They still need homes, right? Partners in the city that we support, they're still trying to do some of their work. So what does it look like for us to, in the midst of this new elephant, to care for all these things that we're still involved in?
Yeah, I've been just joking with some friends, like we're all growing in some areas we might not even want to be growing, and so as a public service agency and child welfare, there are really unique needs that they're having to address during this time of a global pandemic. So they are trying to adjust through that and figure out most things are moving online. So for instance. For mandatory reporting, which is a situation if you have a child or a friend that is under 18 that is in a situation that doesn't feel safe, and you can call that into the hotline. And so nationally, that's down 60 to 70%. Wow. So when we talk about not just the quarantine being inconvenient or being like, wow, I can't get what I'm looking for at the grocery store, but then if you have a child or a friend that is in a situation that they're quarantined with an abuser or someone who's not safe emotionally or physically, right. Then that adds really unique and fearful things during this time. So the schools and the faith community are usually 80% of the mandatory reports that come in. So those two things are shut down in their normal processes right now, which means there's a lot of people that would be advocating for kids that aren't able to. So when we talk about proximity and we talk about being a neighbor to someone, what does that mean to advocate for your neighbor? For health and for respecting that family and for asking for help, right? We all need help at different times, and that looks differently how we seek that. But again, we want to be proactive instead of reactionary. So kind of what that looks like and things of what we're doing. If you've been around a while, I could talk about this a long time. So condensing my thoughts a little bit here, but kind of two things that we're really focusing on this time. We have foster families and kinship families and adoptive families in our church that are going through really unique things. They're having visits online. So one of our families has 15 visits a week for the 5 kids that they have in their home. We have a single foster mom who has 5 children in her home right now. She's working from home, she has visits, and she has 5 kiddos with unique behavioral needs as well. So what does it really look to enter in and be a part of that? We have a surprise, so I'm gonna not say that what the surprise is, but we're just looking for tangible ways to love families. So we're gonna roll out something this next week. But one thing is, if you, one thing that we, like Vince and I have just been talking about is, this doesn't go away, this doesn't change, this doesn't lessen. If anything, we're expecting this to really increase.
Right.
Calls to the domestic violence hotline are up like over 1,000% in some areas of our country right now. So the level of need is there, and once we have more proximity with children, the level of reports will go up, which means that affects us and the children that need safe places to be. So totally cool. Like, we haven't even publicly been announcing this yet, but we are still going to be having Arizona 127 orientation on May 12th. So you'll see some of that coming up on Facebook and the toolkit and some invitation pieces of, if you've been around, you've heard us talk about this, but we all have a role to play. Vince likes the joke of, if you're a college student, like, you can't foster in your dorm room, it's not appropriate, and that's weird.
Especially now, because you're not living
especially now.
So probably, actually now, college students, you probably could, if you can convince your parents to.
Yeah, but let's not encourage that. So that's not your role when you're in college, but you can make a meal, you can help babysit, not right now, but in other moments of time. You can help with our parents' afternoon out, right? We want to present other opportunities for you to care for families and strengthen them. We each have a role to play. And so really cool during this time, we've had 3 families reach out asking about what does it mean to become a foster parent during this time, right? I was like, yeah, totally Jesus, and I'm super emotional, but just exciting that we have this conversation, and this is a part of the heartbeat of who you are, or who we are as a church, and hopefully an invitation for you to join us. And so, yeah, if you're interested in learning more about becoming a CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate, or becoming a foster adoptive family, or making meals for our family. Really, if you want to care about families at all in our community, please join us on May 12th at the orientation. Again, we'll share a bunch of stuff on there. Vince and I will be hanging out doing the slides together on Zoom, so you know it's going to be a fun time.
yeah, it should be, yeah. The foster and adoptive stuff is, again, like, and the stats that we often hear about, I mean, they're just brutal. Obviously the stories that you then share, because you know more of the real, hey, this happened today, you know what I mean? So they're heavy and they're weighty, and I think what encouraged me so much about, like, hey, we have 3 new families that want to kind of get involved in potentially fostering, it is just, for me, it's like very incarnation based. Like, it's Jesus, like came to earth. He had, right before he got here, like, he had everything. Life was great with his perfect community that is the Godhead, and then he came into this mess and this squalor. And it wasn't like, oh, this is, like, Jesus didn't come down and say, oh, this is so much harder than I thought, let me retreat, but rather was, right, even Hebrews saying, like, no, he had been tempted and tested in every way possible, so there's nothing we can't bring to him. And in that same sense of, my hope and my prayer is that in this, that the Spirit is forming his church, and not just Redemption, right, but his people here in our city, to say, like, hey, in the midst of this, would it so be that God is refining us to catch a glimpse of difficulty, of pain in a bit, to, like, move us in empathy towards the least of these and those that are truly hurting, where then the response isn't like, well, let me hold on to my stuff, right? It's like, let me give even more away, and let me lay down more of my life, which, again, church, like, if I just preach for a second, like, that is so counterculture, just, like, everything in us wants to say, no, like, we need to save, we need to hoard, we need to be secure, we need to be comfortable. and everything in the gospel says like, yes, that's all true, but it happens in Jesus, so then you can just lay everything else out on the table.
I think that's been like just so beautiful during this time. Is again, it's not something new that we're doing. Like really, none of this is new. I mean, some
practical stuff,
right.
Logistics, and yeah.
But in how we're caring and why we're caring and the way we're doing it, like that is the ethic, I think, of who we are called to be, because Jesus loves so beautifully. It doesn't matter that I'm inconvenienced. It might feel uncomfortable. It might be painful even, and it might feel awful at times. But it is so beautiful that we get to be allowed to enter into this with each other. And I think. Just the stories that I get to see and the texts that I get, and like honestly that it is the best part of doing this job and being in this role is just being able to be on the front lines of people loving people really well. And so there's so many people that we could do shout outs to right now, and if I did, then I would get phone calls asking that we don't share those publicly, because people are asking not to be celebrated and like in an arrogant way. Like we want to celebrate them because they love Jesus and they're loving their neighbors well, but so many people that are doing amazing things in our community and directly in our neighbors that have impacted me have just done it because they love Jesus and they love me. And that's been like incredible to be able to see during this time of intense suffering and loss and pain and insecurity and unknown and not knowing where paychecks or food or housing would be looking like in a month, but we get to be in this together, and that's one thing I really hope that we continue through this. And on the other side, like we aren't going back to a normal before, like we will have to refigure this out. But I hope that the ethics and the desire and the unity that we are together grows in this season and into the next season. Yeah,
massive. I'm gonna do some. There's so much stuff going on. There's a lot more, So other partners that we continue to work with in the city and support and all that kind of stuff. I want to just do a quick segment that we do on Tuesdays with Anthony and I. Anthony and I always do a segment on Tuesdays called Rapid Fire Questions. And so I'm going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions. They're just literally off the top of my head. And just to get to know you a little bit in the season, I think it's important everybody knows who you are. This thing is getting tens of views, and so
wow,
I'm kidding. So first question: what is your favorite food to eat? So much that you would eat it 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the next 11 years.
Pad Thai, lunch menu for sure. So any of those things on the lunch menu. But most particularly,
so Thai food. You're picking a whole genre. Okay, what if I said I had one dish from the lunch menu?
From the lunch menu, Pad Thai, for sure.
Yeah. Chicken too.
Yeah. Obviously, we're there too many times.
Okay, so that's good. So that's the first rapid. Second rapid fire question. This is actually a trivia question. Okay. Josh and I, Josh Simon, Amy's husband, are both massive Liverpool soccer fans. Okay.
I'm gonna look like a really awful friend. Okay.
What color is their main uniform?
Oh, red.
Done. See, that was easy. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna ask me to name someone.
So in 1974. That's great. Okay, next rapid fire question. If you could leave today to go anywhere for 36 hours, where would you go?
36 hours. You're gonna laugh, but obviously on a kayak somewhere that has water.
Yeah.
Probably Colorado.
Colorado kayaking, and you could just zoom there though. You would still do Colorado. You wouldn't be like, hey, I'm gonna do the Pyrenees or something, or go down to like.
I mean, there's like time zone things, and if it's right now, like.
You're just out there. You're just all of a sudden you're there. You have to travel.
Oh, if I'm just like picking a random place, I would go. So I lived in Uganda and Kenya for a few years, and so I would go to the source of the Nile in Uganda. There's like monkeys in the trees, and kind of hang out next to the Nile.
That sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm. Are the monkeys in denial there?
I totally set that up for you. Good job.
Okay, 2 more questions. This next question is: If there was one staff member at Redemption Flagstaff that you had to fire, who would it be? No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
No. If there was one staff member at Redemption Flagstaff right now, and it's extended staff, so picture everyone that's on Slack, okay? Which is like 20 people on that. If there's one staff member of that 20 that you had to give a foot rub to, who would it be?
This is such a weird question.
Why?
You hate giving foot rubs.
I know. I'm not. That's why I'm not the one doing it.
Andy.
Andy.
Yeah, for sure.
Andy with a Y. Just kidding. No. I-E. Hey, Andy. Okay, last question, rapid fire. What has been the most difficult and hard part of this COVID season in your role right now?
That's super sexy. You know, I'm gonna cry answering this. Yeah, I think, do you want me to answer like on the personal note or like in my role here?
Either one.
Yeah,
And the reason why I'm asking, I know it's a heavy question, and so I'll give you a second to think about it, just in the sense of, we can come on here and we can just be like, look at all the stuff we're doing, and everything's amazing, and you guys are doing so great. But this is like real stuff, and I see you day in and day out laboring, and not day in and day out, but every other day in and every other day out crying, and I'm in that with you, and so I do think it's important, and I can share a bit too of just some of the weightier part of this, because it's easy for us to come on this live thing and have fun and laugh and stuff, but it is a serious thing. We're so proud of the work that you're doing, but I know there's a weight to it, and so I think it's important people do also see that. So.
Yeah, I think to share like in my role and then kind of personally, but yeah, you see me when I get like the really hard phone calls and I'm just like at my desk and like Jesus, please come quickly, like I can't.
Right. No, totally. Yeah,
like the answers feel so out of reach, or like I don't even know how to help. I don't even know what to ask or like even what to pray for sometimes. And so yeah, I think like just this dear Jesus moment of not like a cuss word, well maybe, but but this like right. Jesus, like this has to be you because it can't be me. Like as much as like you joke about I'm awesome, or you know we have great relationships and we have resources of value, of time, of money, like none of that is enough to fix any of this. We just get to be a part of caring, right? And I can deliver toilet paper, or I can buy a car seat, or I can deliver a bed, or I can make a meal, or I can answer a phone call and be on there for 2.5 hours. Like those are things that like, okay, Jesus, like I can't fix this, but I can be in this, and I can allow you to present opportunities to share and like to be together.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, that's good.
I didn't cry on that one. I'll probably cry on this one. But yeah, I think I'm not married, and during this season of singleness, and I'm so blessed to live with a family with loud and rowdy kids. But it has been like really hard to navigate these questions of like loneliness and like deep what that means. Like if something was to happen, or right like. If I was to get sick, what would that mean? Like super pessimistic things that Vince is gonna like roll his eyes at if I say it, but like, you know, what does this mean if something was to happen to me and someone would need to make decisions about my life or you know, all those type of things. So I think, yeah, just like how to be together and how to like honestly share that it feels awful, like a lot of the time. Yeah, and how to reach out and like acknowledge that and cry over Zoom or cry over another FaceTime, but just to say like this feels awful and heavy, and I think personally I've talked to just a lot of friends recently about this, but like sleep has been awful, like I'm not sleeping, and so what does it mean to like physically feel rest and like feel able to like go into the next day when the physical rest isn't happening, and is hard to figure out.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And it's not just so, because it's always that truth of like when we're vulnerable, and I'm like God's worst example of this, but I know cognitively it's true. Like
that's why Andy and I are here to make you cry more often.
But like when we're vulnerable, right? There's the invitation there for other people to be. I think that there can be this sense of like, hey, we're doing it and we're fine, and this is coming to an end, and who knows if that's even true, or what angle we're on this slope or whatever. And I think I think because of everything our whole lives have been turned upside down, there needs to be this rightful place for like pain and sadness and lament to exist, right? And so again, I just thank you for sharing that, because I think it invites us all into that same place. And then specifically for our single friends that are feeling that exact same thing, and honestly, and then like married couples who are feeling that same thing while being married, and so just again, from Kailey and I, and the rest of our staff and elders and at the church, like you're very loved. We're so thankful to be able to be family with one another. What we had the opportunity to talk about today is just kind of some of the family business, and just like this is what we do, and it can sound like we're just blowing smoke when we say like when we try and direct all the attention to you and to the church and what you all are doing and our amazing partners, what they're doing. But truly, like none of this is worth doing without you. It's worth doing because God has, like even as we're studying in the Lord's Prayer, it's our Father. There's the constant us, and it's always we, language of, Lord, we pray to you that you would bless us as a community, that we would be faithful. So that being said, Kailey, thank you for spending time with us today. We're going to wrap up here and just, again, invite you to, if you're looking to get more involved and to serve our city, you can just send us a message, jump onto our Spontaneous Sabbath Toolkit, which is on our webpage, which is flagstaff.redemptionaz.com, and sign up for the CRT. If you have needs, and we keep saying this, but we think the Bible is clear that the number one responsibility of the church is the church. Like we're here to serve you primarily, and then others. Like it's never either or. It's always both and. But that is a primary responsibility of the church. So, church, if you have things that you need, and that's why we're here. Yeah, and that doesn't have to be. I mean, that can be toilet paper. The amount of toilet paper I bought recently is pretty astronomical. But like the reality of like. We've been sharing about the text and prayer. We've been sharing about ways to interact during service. Like when we talk about loneliness, like even on Easter, I found that like, wow, this is such a weird thing to be sitting alone in my bed, buffering our Easter service and really grieving not being together. So and like those emotional needs and the spiritual connection, like please allow us to be together in that. So if you're not connected to an RC or a mentor, like please reach out to Vince and I or Anthony. Like we want you to be in a relationship with us. It might feel weird, it might feel awkward. We're all totally comfortable getting weird phone calls or text messages from people we don't know. Like please don't be alone. Yeah. Shout out to everyone who comments, especially Tom and Brandon. We love you guys too. Tom, you're a rock star. It's very kind of you. Brandon, love you guys. Taylor, Pam, Frank, Jono, Shirley, Caitlin, Tom, Brandon, Angela, and anyone else we missed that just popped on for a minute. You're very loved, and the rest of you might watch this later. Thanks so much for spending a little time with us, and we'll hopefully see you Sunday morning, 10 a.m., as we get into the Word together and continue our series in the Lord's Prayer, looking at a wonderful and amazing part of the text in prayer, which is forgive us our debts as we've also forgiven our debtors. Jesus, be with us, and be with our family in Christ's name. Amen. I'm going to come around now. Kailey has to stand here awkwardly.
It's awkward. I'm just going to do the Miss Universe wave. Bye, guys.
Let's